So just by way of introduction, Steve, you've been involved with many hypergrowth companies over the years. Currently, you're president and COO at the fast-growing AI and robotic company, Berkshire Grey. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and experience with hypergrowth companies?
Sure. I didn't know I liked hypergrowth companies initially, and I probably, like a lot of us, I joined a publicly traded company that was interesting. And by kind of fluke, maybe 4 years into my career, I landed with a company called ACI, which was a relational database and 4GL company, which we also had source code editing software, headquartered in Cupertino, started in France. And once I got in there and found what it was like to be in hypergrowth, I was addicted. That was it. So that was the first of what I think right around 7 hypergrowth companies, including the one I'm at now. But it was really super exciting.
Yeah, very, very cool. So what is it that drives you, that motivates you to work for hypergrowth companies?
I think for me, it's like, and I can give you kind of some examples. For me, the biggest thing that I found was just the speed that things work. So you typically, depending how fast you're going, I don't know, everyone has a different definition of hypergrowth. I would say, to me, hypergrowth is 50% or more year-over-year growth. And if you're growing 100% a year or 200%, year over year, you essentially a typical company grows at 15%. That's actually pretty fast, 10%. But you can compress 5 or 6 years into one. And so it's that, it's that speed, that time compression that I find super interesting. So, once, like I said, once I got into ACI, after ACI, I jumped to another company, Scopus. We pioneered CRM. That was super exciting. Quintera, Apropos was another one that we IPO'd, had great success. Quintera IPO'd, and so, that was all of them had different variants of the same thing. And then Hootsuite was 56,000% revenue growth in 5 years, and now my current one, Berkshire Grey. It's just that scale, the speed in the scale. It's super rewarding. And then the other part that I think is really interesting is just the impact that you can have. Everybody has an impact when you're in hypergrowth, and you quickly be, a year into it, you're a veteran, right? So that's kind of hard to come by in many companies.
So, in the startup world, most companies kind of aspire, to achieve hypergrowth, right? That's the holy grail. But only a small, percentage of companies actually achieve that. So, from your experience, what are some of the market dynamics that really create the opportunity to grow at hyperspeed?
Yeah. I think the most important is that there is a wave. I've used this many times. You may have heard me talk about the surfing analogy. You need a wave. There's a surfer is the product. The surfer is the team, and then the board is the product. And so, if you don't have a wave, it's really, really, really hard to get to hypergrowth. And the old wisdom used to be, hey, find the team. The team is the most important. Number one, if you have a great team, they're going to create a great product. And if there's no wave, they'll go find a wave. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think it's too hard and takes too long to pivot to find a wave. I think it's way more, you can hit a hypergrowth company or find a hypergrowth company way easier if you actually find the wave first, or look out there and say, what are the analysts saying for the dominant growth? And it's not hard to do. I used to, for years, I would go every year to South by Southwest when it was just 500 people. I'd go every year, and it was mainly to try to get a pulse on tech. Where is innovation?
So it's interesting, right? So it's almost a little bit like stock picking, right? So there are a lot of VCs, and they're all looking for the wave for their next investment. And we all know the stats about how many VC deals succeed, and it's the minority. So there's an art to choosing the wave that's actually gonna crest.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you look for to find that perfect wave?
Yeah. It's kind of like they say health, the best predictor of health is to choose your parents wisely. And so there is some luck involved in tech, but I mean, I definitely look at the, I look at the space, I look at the founder, but to me, it's that surfing analogy. I look for those three things. And there also has to be a common sense element to it as well,
Right.
so I
And
remember.
everybody aspires to growth, but growth creates its own set of challenges, and especially when you're growing, very, very rapidly. So, what are some of the unique challenges that you found of companies experiencing hypergrowth?
Yeah, there's a ton of them. I mean, just the sheer pressure of keeping up, like Zoom, we're on Zoom now. I can't even fathom, what 10 million unique daily users a month ago. Now they've just announced yesterday 300 million. They've got some pressures. So there's infrastructure pressure, there's talent pressure. Like, are you bringing on the right people? There's product pressure, and there's pressure to keep that up, right? How do you keep growing at the rate you're growing? It will end at some point. Nothing keeps growing at that incredible rate forever. So I think that's really tough. So there's financial challenges when you're in hypergrowth, where particularly in SaaS, you get your money over X amount of years. You don't get it up front. So if you're scaling at hundreds or 500%, whatever that number is, then you're not recouping the investment. So you have all this upfront investment that you're doing. So you actually have to be raising money and looking ahead to raise money. So there's that kind of thing. And then there's always looking ahead and keeping an eye on the growth. How do you keep that growth going? So a lot of times it's going lateral, adding what are some ancillary products that you can add to the mix, or a geographical. I give Ryan a lot of credit at Hootsuite early on for listening to me on some of the growth stuff where we went, from our free to pro and then enterprise. The big push, we were really cranking on our whole story that year one. We took off, but during that first year, I'm like, I think we really need to open up an EMEA office. So we did, and I joined in 2011, if I remember the year right. And 2012, summer of 2012, we opened up an EMEA office, and we had not at all penetrated North America, but the thought was we really had to be looking at the longer term play to keep that growth up. And it turned out to be right. In 2013, we opened up APAC. 2014, we opened up LATAM. And having these new markets to invest in, basically where we had new products that we invested in to broaden our footprint. And then we had these new geos where we invested in. So you could always keep juicing that growth. But that's a lot of pressure, on a young organization. When I joined Hootsuite, it was 27 employees, and ended that year, I think it was something like 120. And then the next quarter, we added our entire company, and that just kept happening, right? And
Yeah.
and now you start adding offices in London, Paris, and Hamburg, and Singapore and Sydney, and it just goes down the list, where your HR challenges become really tough, your infrastructure, your regulatory, your market. Now you have to market to all those different places, and it's unique.